excited to be here. I want to start by thanking Charla. She took a risk and started an organization, and she gave a voice to women. So I think we should give Charla another round of applause. As Charla said, my name is Nancy Heinrichs, and I'm from Winnipeg, and I'm the executive director of a community health agency. And I want to tell you a little bit about my story on how I became fearless today. I want to take you back a little ways. I was on a boat in the middle of an ocean. I couldn't see land anywhere. The wind was blowing, the boat was rocking, and my stomach was churning. And all I could think was, please don't let me throw up. Not here. I waited impatiently as 5 people got suited up. It was now my turn, and I was terrified. They said, as they put on the heavy equipment, they said, now turn around, cross your arms, and roll backwards into that cold, uninviting, dark ocean. That was my beginning of being fearless. I'm going to take you back to 2009. I was married to John for 26 years, happily married. I had 3 children, Stephen, who was 23 at the time, Ryan, who was 21, and my baby girl, Steph, who was 17. I had a happy life. I'd worked at Norwest for quite a period of time, and it was all good. I'm going to fast forward you to May of 2010. I got that call that nobody wants. My dad had fallen, and he had broken his hip. He had a stroke. We rushed to the hospital. He was put on life supports. And my siblings and I had to make that awful decision. Not on my brother's birthday, but we took him off life supports, and he passed away. 2 months later, we flew home to Quebec. I'm from Quebec. We flew home to Quebec, and it was my mom's 80th birthday. We had a great party that day. But that night, my mom had a heart attack. We went back to that very same hospital, and we spent another 7 days there. And again, my siblings and I had to make that awful decision. And we took her off life support, and she passed away. I lost my mom that day. Just a couple months later, my husband was going through day surgery. Yes, routine day surgery. He'd already had the surgery once before, but this time, the surgeon accidentally poked a hole in his heart. He went too long without oxygen, and I lived with 10 days with the despair, the hope, and then the despair, where I had to say goodbye to the love of my life. Can we all agree that's enough for any one person in a few months? I wasn't done yet. 1 month later, exactly 1 month to the day, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. I think I went into shock at that point, and I lived through the surgery, the chemo, the radiation, and the Herceptin. Then I really felt like I was at a crossroads. I could choose to be stuck, or I could choose to be fearless. I'm a social worker by background, and I've worked and walked with a lot of people who have gotten stuck. Something tragic has happened in their life, a critical incident, an event they can't get over, and they get angry, and they stay there. And I had every good reason to get stuck. I could be mad at the surgeon for poking a hole in my husband's heart. I could be even madder for not recognizing he had done that and save him. I could be mad at my physician. He had misread my mammogram when he first saw it. But I was determined not to get stuck. I was determined that I needed to be fearless. I wanted to live every day to the fullest. I wanted to experience new things. I wanted to try things. and lived the most adventurous life I possibly could. And that's how I ended up on that boat. I was being certified to be a scuba diver. So I truly believe that being fearless doesn't mean not being afraid. I was terrified. Being fearless does not mean you're being afraid. Picture this. I'm sitting in a community club. It's a room full of seniors, and I'm in Japan. I watch as they have vials of urine. Yes, urine. Their urine in front of them. I watch as they take a stick, and they put the stick in the urine, and they pull it out. They look at the results, and they wave the stick around as they share their results with their neighbors. I then watch them take their blood pressure and their blood sugar. It's a program called Hands Kai, and I'm there with a group of experts. Experts, doctors, researchers, who are there looking at the Japanese health system. They all say, this program would never work in Canada. Canadians would never do their health indicators together. Canadians would never share their health results. Canadians would never, and Canadians would never. Now, these people are much smarter and much more health experts than I'll ever be. But I really liked the program. It made sense to me. It gave people back control. It gave people an easy way to figure out when they were having health issues early on in their life. So I go back to Winnipeg, and I go to a coworker, and I want her to work with me on the project. But she's pretty busy and not that interested. But I continue. I talk to her about it regularly. So we start Hands Kai in Winnipeg. And was I afraid? Absolutely. What happens if all those experts across Canada were right? What happens if Canadians won't do this? What happens if the program really doesn't work and my co-workers no longer trust my decisions because I'm the one who encouraged this program to happen? We did it anyway. We trained people in Hands Kai, many groups in Winnipeg. We then trained across Canada in almost every province, excluding this one, unfortunately. We trained in almost all provinces. We started a national network. And just last month, I was in Geneva, Switzerland, and they invited us there to talk about Hands Kai, our Hands Kai, going to Africa, to Kenya to be exact. Am I still afraid? Absolutely. What happens if people fund Hands Kai and it doesn't work in Kenya? But I'm not going to let it stop me. And truthfully, if I would have been afraid and chose not to run that program, thousands of people would not have experienced Hands Kai. You are more than you think you are. How many in this room think they're not very good at math? I would like to see a show of hands. How many people think they're not thin enough? And I could go on. How many people think they're not funny enough, smart enough, capable enough? We all hear things when we're young, and we grow to believe them. It becomes who we are. I know that's what happened to me. I had always heard that I wasn't good enough at sports. I wasn't very athletic. So what did I do? I did nothing. I watched my kids play sports. I didn't do any. I wasn't good at it. So a couple of years ago, I decided to join a small gym. And I really liked the trainer, Cassie. You know, when I went to the gym, I felt like a little bit like Cheers. I felt like Norm. When I walked in, everybody knew my name, and they made me feel welcome. And this wonderful trainer, Cassie, after I'd been there a while, talked about running a running program. Now, I really liked her and wanted to be successful, but of course, where does your head go when you believe you're not good at something? I can't do this. I can't run fast, and I sure can't run far. I'm going to hold the whole group back if I join. But wanting to make someone successful, I go to Cassie and said, I'm interested. Cassie said, we're going to start at 5 minutes running, and then we're going to move from there. And I thought, oh my God, there's no way I can run 5 minutes. And so I had to say to Cassie, I can't do it. I can't join. 2 weeks later, I was in Mexico. And I was walking, beautiful morning on the ocean, and I decided to see just how far I could run. I ran 5 minutes without stopping. I was shocked. Where did that come from? Maybe working out 4 or 5 times a week really had done something to help me. So I call Cassie and I'm all excited. I said, Cassie, I'm in. And then she told me, we're going to run at 5:15 in the morning. I was still in. You know, we started running and I ran 20 minutes, 60 minutes, 90 minutes. And the day I ran that first half marathon, I was so very proud of myself. So very proud. But it also did something else as well. It told me that I needed to change my mindset, that I was something, maybe something that I didn't believe in myself, and maybe I could do more, and maybe life was more. Take somebody with you. When I think about taking somebody with you, I think about the Youth Hub and about Adam. I met Adam when we started to plan a Youth Hub. He was on the Youth Advisory. He was one of our youth reps. I work in a community in Winnipeg where a lot of the youth experience issues with drugs, alcohol, gangs, and mental health issues. And there's no program that serves them well. I wanted to start one where they could walk in and receive all of those services under one roof without an appointment. So what did we do? We called in the experts. We met Adam. He was an expert. He was an expert in being a youth, but he was also an expert because he'd experienced some addiction issues. So we sat around the table with Adam and some other youth in this barren room that we hoped would later be the Youth Hub. Adam had some great suggestions. He was very excited to be there. He said, bring in some addiction experts. Youth need it. Open it up after school. That's when the kids can come. And he said, do something with this room. Make it look better. Paint it something like yellow and purple. If you make it fun, the kids will come. Well, youth hubs don't just happen. So we brought in other experts. We had none in Winnipeg, and so we were setting the road for it. So we brought in people with expertise in mental health, addictions, and employment. The day I had to go and ask each one of them, would they put staff in my center with no compensation for their staff time, I can tell you my heart pounded. But it was worth it. They all said yes. We opened in 2016, and was I afraid? Absolutely. What happens if our staff could not deal with the issues that youth bring, such very complex issues? What happens if we couldn't maintain the funding because there was no government funding at all, and we chose to start it on grant funding? What if something happened in the center that we couldn't deal with? So we opened in 2016, and the walls are purple and yellow. And why is that? There was a twist to the story. One night, Adam made a different choice. He went out, and he went out with friends that he hadn't seen for a while. He hadn't been using, and he decided to use again that night. We lost Adam that night to a drug overdose. And so when we opened the center in 2016, the walls were yellow and purple, and Adam's picture sits on our walls. It tells us how many people it takes to come together to be able to help youth cope with the issues that they experience. Were we successful? I truly believe so. We've served 1,700 youth in the past 16 months. And just last week, we were named the best model for youth mental health in Manitoba. This is the Norwest staff, if you're curious. Look for opportunities everywhere. You know, I find, and maybe you do as well, do people ask you sometime to do things and you just say no? Or maybe they don't even ask, but something comes by and you just don't do it because it's not in your comfort zone, just what you don't do. I know I do that. An example of that is I was in the youth hub, the same youth hub I just spoke about. We were celebrating our year anniversary. And we invited a speaker. It was an RBC Olympic rower. And this rower talked his amazing story about how he had learned to row and how it helped him figure out how to go to school. A great guy. But when it was done, he said to the youth, I've got this rowing machine here. Why don't you try it and I'll show you how to use it. Kids all got on and they rowed and they were laughing and they saw how to do it. The kids were done and he turned to the staff and he said, do you want to try? We all said no. Was I afraid? I knew I'd look goofy. I knew that I didn't know how to row that machine. I knew that I might embarrass myself in front of our staff. So I said no. A few minutes later, I was leaving. I was walking out the door, and I stopped. I was saying no to an opportunity. When would I ever get an opportunity to row a machine like that again? When would I ever get an expert to show me how to row? I turned around and got back on that machine and said yes to an opportunity. As I got on, I wished I wasn't wearing a skirt. It was fun. The staff laughed and clapped and took pictures, and it was great. But what that showed me is that it's a muscle that we need to use every single day, looking for opportunities. So I'm going to ask for your help. I'm turning 60 next year. And I want to do 60 new things in the next 3 years. And I ask you for your suggestions as to what they could be. I'm going to show you my email address in a little bit. And if you could email me anything that you think I could try, big, small, I just want different things. But I also challenge you to think about what you would do. And I'd love it if you could email me some of those suggestions on things that you're going to try as well. Would I have ever wished 2010 and all of the losses happened to me? Absolutely not. If I could change that, I would in a moment. But would I ever want to change my choice to be fearless? Not at all. So I just want to quickly review the 4 things that I've talked about. Just because you're fearless does not mean you're not afraid. That's one of the things that I learned. I've done a lot of things that I'm afraid of, both in my business and my personal life. I can tell you that our organization has doubled in size when we became fearless. And you know what? I've also learned being a little scared is kind of fun. You're more than you think you are. When I'm doing something now, and I can tell you with this speech, I had to stop and give myself a talk. I try to center myself, and I try to tell myself I can do it. And actually, if I'm golfing or bowling, I know I'm actually a little bit better after. And it's all in our mind, and we have to change our mindset. Take somebody with you. In our organization, we probably have more committees and meetings and talks around the desk than most places. But I truly believe it makes us successful and creative. Look for opportunities everywhere. I'm going to ask you to think about an opportunity of something you can do in the next month. And what I'm asking is, and maybe you'll take somebody with you, is that you'll turn to someone sitting beside you right after I finish my speech and tell them what you're going to do in the next month, where you're going to look for an opportunity that you might have said no to before. So in closing, I was with a friend who was learning to water ski one day, and she said to me, just because I'm really tired, just because it's raining and it's cold out here, and just because I'm really scared, that's not a good enough reason not to do it. I use that every day as I make decisions. So in closing, I just want to, again, invite you to email me any suggestions you have for me and yourself. And I want to thank you very much for listening to my speech. I just want to tell you that you are the first of my 60 things I wanted to tell my story in public. So thank you.
Nancy Heinrichs.